Hello everybody and welcome to the 60 Plus Racing Adventures GT3 series. It's time for our broadcasted round here from the wonderful sunshine of Italy and Mugello. This is round 8 of our championship. There's 4 more to go after this one, including a round including rain in just 1 week's time. Such an important race then to set ourselves up for the home stretch of this season. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, and I will be alongside Dylan Cole in a few moments time here on RaceSpotTV. I hope you're going to enjoy the show this evening. This is the schedule for the GT3 series this time around. It is a circuit mixed, of course, with so many different tracks and combinations over the course of the season in the GT3 series, racing right across the world from the Far East to North America and Europe as well, having our final round in Europe for a couple of weeks here today at Mugello. Let's have a look at the standings going into this round as well. Mike Grandy, who else would you expect to see at the top? He is leading by only 9 points, in fairness to David Riley. Ricardo Alieta is in third, ahead of Greg Seitz, who has just, I can tell you, topped the practice session which has just ended out there on the circuit. Bill Smitham is in 5th place, and then there's a noticeable gap to Rosadi, the first driver without 200 points. He's tied with Steve Greenwood for 6th. Craig Foot is in 8th place ahead of Remigio Dibskura. That is 9th place for him, ahead of Jerry Kerr, Todd Scholl and Wally Mulsby to round out the top 12. So that's how we're standing going into the 8th race of our season. 5 rounds to go, including the one that we're at the moment. To give you an idea of what those final few rounds looks like, as I mentioned, it's rain race next time out. Mid-Ohio is the location. Road America to complete our American leg of the season, or another part to the American leg of the season, if you like. And that will do it. We'll be back in Europe for the remainder. Hockenheim and Algarve to round out the season. Just under 8 minutes to go in qualifying. A very good afternoon and an evening to anyone who is tuned in on RaceSpotTV. I'm delighted to be saying I believe, I'm joined by Dylan Cole, who will be with me for this round. Welcome in, Dylan. Good to have you with us. GT3 racing, always exciting. Mugello is tricky though sometimes. Interesting to see how this circuit races in these cars and just what kind of race we're going to see across 40 minutes here tonight.
Appreciate the warm welcome, Ewan. Yeah, you know, Mugello is one of those tracks that I always feel like when a GT3 car goes onto it, I don't expect much in terms of available passing opportunities. It's a lot of fun to drive. It's a lot of fun to be behind the wheel of one of these machines over the course of 40 minutes, but you really got to pick your spots. There's not a lot of heavy braking zones preceded by a long straightaway. Obviously, you have one of the longest straightaways you can possibly ask for heading into turn 1. That's going to be your biggest passing zone. Some of the chicanes early on will be fun to watch, but it's going to be few and far between the passing opportunities for these drivers.
Yeah, certainly, and I think the driving experience maybe is going to be a little bit more heightened than maybe watching, because it is going to be pretty single file, I think, but we could be surprised, and we're more than welcome to be. Let's just tell you a little bit about the format, of course, for this series, give you the very basics, because as I said before, this is the broadcasted race of this season, so let's give you a bit of a rundown of to actually what these guys are contending with. A fixed setup for all of the drivers. That means that it's relatively high downforce, and that should give you plenty of grip around a circuit that really does require it. The races do have a pit stop as well, so look out for that over the course of 40 minutes. They've just completed their 30-minute practice session. Greg Seitz was at the top of the standings for that. We're in the 10-minute qualifying session at the moment. Everybody's out there alone. They have to deal with traffic, and then it's a 40-minute race. 2 of the races have rain. The others have clear conditions for the most part, apart from a foggy race at Brands Hatch, which we've already had. Other than that, it's a clear race, and actually it's going to be fairly warm. This is an afternoon race here at Mugello. It's the middle of the year, of course, especially down in Italy. Very, very warm indeed. Over 40 minutes, tyres are not really a concern in terms of actually keeping them alive in terms of wear, but tyre temperatures might be something to look at in terms of managing over the course of 40 minutes because of those temperatures, because of how many turns there are.
Yeah, 100%. You know, these tires are going to be screaming just a little bit, but not screaming enough for a long amount of time for it to really elicit a tire change. Fuel, obviously, always a question mark, but You know, the iRacing model with the tires are a little bit easier going, I should say, on GT3 machines. So you won't see tire changes here as we see a bunch more cars set some times for this qualifying session. 149.6 currently at the top. Some pretty big separation, though.
Yeah, although it is the first round of time, so we'll see how much we can really read into it. Roberto De Filippis is currently the fastest driver. Remigio Di Pasqua is in second, ahead of Todd Scholl, then Craig Butt and Ricardo Alita, the top 5 for the moment. Mike Grandi is down in 12th, and that's an indicator, really, I think, that these drivers have not set representative times for the most part throughout their first lap times, because Grandi is such a strong driver, multiple time, and I'm under-egging that, to be honest, multiple time oval champion in the 60 Plus Racing Adventures world, and he is on the top of this championship at the moment as things stand as well. So that's an indication, really, as to where we are. But, you know, it's not an easy circuit to get a qualifying time down in. Only 10 minutes, that shouldn't be the problem. I think the problem is going to be staying on the road, because there isn't much room for error. If you do dip a couple of wheels off into the outside of the circuit, they'll be straight into the grass. You'll be getting an off track immediately. So that's something that these drivers all have to be wary of, so that they actually get a lap time on the board during this session. There's only 3.5 minutes to go.
That's a really, really good point, Ewan. You know, you're at this track, you're at the limit of what the tires are going to be able to do, because you have so many high-speed flowing corners, a lot of height variation throughout. I mean, you are at the limit, right? It's a track that is a lot of fun to drive on, as Greenwood sets a time up top. Di Pasqua gets to second. Here's where we start to see those times really come into play, as Alita gets into fourth. Oh, look at that. You go off, and that's exactly what we were just talking about. It's one of those old school tracks where you do have a lot of unforgiving runoff areas. You've got a lot of gravel traps, a lot of grass on the edges of the racing surface. I love it. It is one of those tracks that, yes, maybe the racing sometimes leaves a little bit more to be desired, but my goodness, it's just fun to watch a car go around this track.
Yeah, I think in terms of driving, maybe you'd prefer even a little bit more downforce, actually, than these GT3 cars can really provide for you. I can imagine the sort of maybe the F3 car got or F4 car. You know, that we got both of those cars, of course, in the schedule and different nights here, 60 Plus Racing Adventures this season. I bet those cars are a bit more fun around here, to be honest, with the more downforce that they have. However, as I mentioned at the start, they've all got fixed setups here and purposely tuned to have a little bit more downforce than you might have on your regular standard iRacing setup. So that might actually help these cars around here, whereas it may have frustrated a few at Daytona, for example, where we went racing for round number 4. I guess that was negated slightly by the fact it was raining, but even so, high downforce around Daytona doesn't often go very well together. On board we go with Greg Seitz then. He's currently second in his Corvette, looking to take it to the front. He's got 4 attempts to find. I wonder if he's managed it here, and we've seen most of the lap time here trying to overtake Steve Greenwood. It's been relatively calm, relatively clean. This may be enough for pole.
It very well may be. He's only a few tenths off. We'll see as he crosses the line coming down this straightaway. It's looking like a really solid lap time. I think he got it.
Yep, think so. Yeah, he did. Quarter of a second. Greenwood actually improved there just as Seitz was coming towards the fight and through the final corner. He actually did improve a little bit, but it wasn't enough. Greg Seitz has taken this by a quarter of a second, and I don't think anybody's going to be able to get near him. Russadi is the next closest driver to him, still on the circuit. Everybody else constrained by the course of 10 minutes, of course. Russadi's not going to find 2 seconds here. It looks like we have got our pole sitter.
Yeah, it looks like that is absolutely the case. Just a solid lap by Greg Seitz. He is not the only driver to get into the 148 range. Greenwood just barely in there. We'll see if Russ Addy is able to put his time a little bit better into the 149s, and that's not what he gets, but he does improve into P5. That's a solid lap time for Addy.
Yep, it is, and that gets him to 5th position. the gaps, as you mentioned earlier, still very large. I thought that was just because it was the first round of times, but actually it may just be this circuit, now I think about it, very twisted, very much twists and turns around here, and that does often make gaps a bit bigger than they otherwise might be. So we are seeing some fairly big gaps. It's going to be an interesting race. 40 minutes ahead of us in the 60 Plus Racing Adventures, and it's going to be Greg Seitz on the front. Quarter of a second ahead of Steve Greenwood, who were a world away from Maurizio Di Pasqua in the on home soil, as is Roberto De Filippis. Rosati is alongside Riccardo Alita in the third row, followed by Craig Butt in another one of those Ferraris. Todd Charlie's 8th ahead of Mike Grandy, the championship leader, in 9th, and Steve O'Malley in the top 10. Franz Josef Stump is 11th, then of David Riley in 12th place. Then is Gene Moore in 13th, ahead of Jerry Kerr. Peter Halston and JC Hay share row 8 ahead of Bob Kern and Tom Deselms in 18th, and then it's Eugene Clark, the final driver, to set a time, and the final driver in the session as well. Just 20 of them, or 19 of them, excuse me, in the field today. So that is the field spread. Everybody qualifying, but 3.6 seconds from top to bottom, I think says more about this circuit than these drivers. When there are so many corners like there are around here, and when they are so high speed and difficult, it's no wonder really that the gaps get quite so large. And that's what we've seen in that qualifying session, a noticeable gap especially between the front row and the rest of the field.
Yeah, not too surprising based on how this circuit drives, but I do feel like, you know, it's one of those tracks where if you've got a fast car, if you've focused on it, and if you have the position, you're going to be able to hold it unless you make mistakes or are under constant pressure as we go for a full pace lap here of the Mugello circuit. You know, I love this track. I know I've said it a couple times at this point, but it's so hard to make moves unless you go into this corner with a head of steam. And even then, because it kind of rises to the right and is a little bit, I wouldn't say banked, but it is a little bit banked, and then you've got the rise, it is so difficult to make a move.
It is, yeah, a bit off camber on the way towards turn 1, and it can make it quite tricky. As you say, because it's a big stop, big hairpin, you would think it'd be a good chance to overtake, but it's actually not really the case when you put it into practice. As I mentioned before the broadcast, or just as we were starting this broadcast, Mike Grandy is currently leading the standings ahead of David Riley by just 9 points. Grandy qualified in 9th place for this race, and David Riley qualified down in 12th place. Where's the best place to the real championship contenders, I hear you ask then? Probably Riccardo Alita, although he's only up in 6th place, not exactly on the front. Greg Seitz is on pole, of course. He's 4th in the standings, but has 22 points to make up. So he is a little bit behind at this stage, but if he can get the ball rolling here in this round, there'll be a few more to go, 4 more to go after this one. And so Seitz might be able to make a run at the championship if he stays at the front and his rivals, as they are at the moment, stay in the midfield and towards the back.
Yeah, 100%. And if he is able to hold that positioning strong, I don't think there's going to be too much of a challenge. Again, it's just you're racing the track more than you're racing the competitors around you. However, lap 1 is always chaotic. I don't care what series, what track you're at, you are going to have to deal with a lot more pressure than you would otherwise, as it's a front row with a Porsche and a Ferrari. I love that.
Yeah, a Porsche and a Ferrari. It's a Corvette.
That's Corvette,
but
my bad. That's my bad. I was looking at the Ferrari right just behind. I missed the Corvette, and that's on me for being an American and not saying, yeah, the Corvette is the Screaming Eagle is up front.
I'm surprised you're not bouncing off the wall celebrating, to be honest.
Hey, listen, you know, I've heard the V8 of the Cadillac machine at Sebring. Woo, boy, that's a beauty.
There you go. Yeah, it's very different to this Corvette, though, isn't it? That noise, that's for sure.
Just a tad.
Yes, they've taken a different noise for this new GT3, that's for sure. Different engine, and well, it's clearly effective, but just takes you ahead a bit of getting adjusted to. Yeah, 3 different manufacturers inside the top 3 with Corvette, Porsche and Ferrari. Further down in the field we do have some other manufacturers. The first of the Audis is driven by Todd Charlie in 8th place. First of the BMWs is just outside the top 10. That's Franz Josef Sturm and he's the only BMW in the field as well, along with one Ford Mustang. That is G Moore directly behind him in the grids. That's 13th place in that qualifying session. So those are the manufacturers on show. Mostly, though, it's Ferrari and Porsche that have taken on the majority of the field, with a few added extras as well. Round the final corner they go. This is turn 15, and the all-important turn 15 that spits you out onto this front straight. You dive towards the line and start another lap. Well, on this occasion we're going to be starting the race as a whole, 40 minutes ahead of us here at Mugello in round 8 of the 60 Plus Racing Adventures GT3 series. It's season 3 of 2024, and Greg Seitz gets off to a pretty early start, looking to catch the jump on everybody else, and as a result it's going to be side by side between Greenwood and De Pasqua in towards turn number 1. Just following in behind is Rosati, who's made a good start as well in that Ferrari. Diving down the inside goes De Pasqua, and he makes up the place already. Steve Greenwood going backwards off this start. Not only was he unable to challenge Seitz, he's actually lost second place and is now in third.
Oh, look at that. There was just a look down the inside going through the chicane there for De Pasqua. Did not go for it. Ricardo Alita trying to move up from 6th on through the field, side by side for 2nd.
Greenwood trying to make up that place again immediately. Can't quite do it though. Into 4 and 5. That would have been brave as well. Rosati's going to go for it as well. Or maybe have a look in towards turn 6. This is the high-speed section now, running down the hill. Looks like though it's been a mostly clean start.
Yeah, really good hard racing, but overall clean. I think that De Pasqua almost threw it away getting into 2nd because he went for a bit of an attack move on Seitz going into that first chicane earlier on. It ended up putting him in a defensive line and allowed for Greenwood to try and get the attack back going, but still Vaught trying to block off Mike Brandy. I mean, this is a big moment for drivers like Seitz, like Rosati, to really move up through the point standings and try and chase down Brandy.
Absolutely, Brandy has made 1 place on the start, but he's only 8th, and that's a 7 position loss on Seitz, and he'll lose quite a lot of his championship margin as a result as well. Down into the final corner they go as De Pasqua tries to hang on to 2nd position. Greenwood's got a good run out of turn 15. Wouldn't be surprised to see at least an attempt on the way down towards turn number 1. It is a long straight. There is a bit of a bend in it. It's not counted as a corner, thank goodness. And we will finally get on the brakes for that first turn right about now. Here goes Greenwood to the outside. He's going to need to brake very late, and De Pasqua is braking very late. He did it on the opening lap. He's doing it again there, although maybe now it's too late. Greenwood goes straight through on the inside. You can see that happening, really. As aggressive as De Pasqua has been so far, there is a point where you can get too aggressive, and that point was certainly reached there.
Yeah, it was right at the limit, but making the move, it was quite beautiful. Steve Greenwood, you got to imagine De Pasqua, who was just within half a second, probably a sector and a half ago on Seitz, has lost a second, of course, due to that move partially, but also just not making up the time he needs to make. This is lovely for Seitz right now.
It is. It's really comfortable, and his closest challenger has had some real challenges already in the first 3 minutes. That has given him that lead, and almost a head start, if you want to put it like that, at the start of this race. But glad to say that I think there's only been 1 issue so far in the race in terms of someone going off the road. Jerry Kerr has gone down to 19th now, I'm afraid to say, and he's off the back of the pack by quite a few seconds as well. So I wonder maybe if that was incident involved, or there was just circumstance for the start of the race. It could be either, but for the most part it has been a clean start as we get to the end of a couple of laps. Now though, you can start to feel the field stretching, spreading out a little bit, and that's what we expected from qualifying. There's a notable front 5 actually getting away from the rest.
I appreciated the attempt at the alliteration. It's difficult sometimes, but what a really good run we're seeing right now between the cars within the podium battle. You know, 1st and 2nd starting to pull away a little bit, and how about Greenwood catching up to Seitz in the last half a lap? But for P3, it is on. It's on.
Yeah, but what it might do is mean that they resign themselves to 3rd. Do they work together here a little bit to try and stay with the leaders, because Greenwood is suddenly a lot closer to Seitz. and De Pasqua is losing that ground. So Addy's got a bit of a decision to make. Does he fall in behind the number 4 and try and push him along to the front group, or does he overtake, thinking that he can go quicker if he's ahead? It's a difficult decision to make, but one that needs to be made quickly as the gap rises to nearly 2 seconds.
Yeah, certainly a great point there. Usually drivers make that decision far too late. They just see the spot in front of them early on and they go all attack mode to make it up. But sometimes, I mean, it's too late to kind of go from there, as you see that little touch in the grass, or the dirt, I should say, the gravel, all those things by De Filippis. And, well, it's not helping the case of trying to go on attack mode. Seitz, it is a question for me, as you brought up. Is he really the fastest between all the top few runners, or is he just benefiting from the attacking that they've all made on each other?
Or is he just fastest over one lap and over multiple? It could get more tricky. We'll find out over the course of the next 35 minutes. Indeed. Seeing further down, by the way, Craig Foot losing a lot of places on this lap. He's now down in 16th after a top 10 running position earlier on. Again, not sure what happened to him, but if there is anything notable, we will go back and have a look at it. Out over the rise towards the line here for the leaders again. De Pasqua's got rid of Rosati a little bit here, who's now under pressure from the number 1 that little bit more. Roberto De Filippis looking for a way through down in towards turn number 1 here in the number 1. He's going to look to the inside. He's not actually going to make any move. But does he force an error from the triple one in terms of braking too late? No, Rosati pulls that up in perfect time, and he will stay 4th.
Yeah, it's some good racing here. I think they've made their bed at this point. Well, maybe not quite made their bed. There's still a lot of race left, but look at that. A dip into the gravel opens up the door. De Filippis trying to go down the inside of Addy. They're side by side through the chicane here. It's not going to end too well. Actually, it ended up perfectly, and what a beautiful bit of racing action and a move there for De Filippis.
Yeah, just slid his way into turn 6. I was a bit concerned on the way in, but he was okay. And in the end, a good pass. I think what facilitated it, though, was Rosati giving quite so much room through that chicane. If he was a little bit more aggressive, yes, the risk of an accident would have gone up, but also the chance of him keeping the place would have gone up too.
Yeah, 100%. And that's also something you've got to think of as a driver early on in the race. How much do you want to put that aggression on? Is there a level where you want to be aggressive now or later, as we see this aggressive little lunge down the inside, or at least a look? Given it a little peek was David Riley on Gene Moore, but it has ended up in him losing some time coming out of that chicane area there, last parts of this lap. And oh boy, I love the look of that race car right there. I do, but I haven't seen too many Ford Mustangs dominate in these mixed class GT3 fields.
Well, it did all right in the Spa 24 hours, didn't it?
This is true. This is true.
But also, did they win, or I can't even remember now. It was Redline didn't choose the same 2 cars, which made it very difficult to remember which one actually won in the end. But it was certainly up there on the lead lap by the end. With one of 3 cars on the lead lap at the end. So anyway, but it's one of the very newest cars, in fact the newest car on the GT3 field, versus one of the oldest in the form of the Audi. I know it's had an Evo version or whatever, but I'm not counting that. It's the same look of the car, it's the same feel of that car that we had all the way back 8 years ago now, I think it was, 7 years ago maybe, when the Audi R8 GT3 LMS was joined into iRacing for the very first time.
Yeah, I forget exactly when the Audi was first put into iRacing. Just to give a little bit of a notice, that Ford Mustang for Team Redline got P2 in the top split of the Spot 24 Hours. Everybody else, though, of course, was in the BMW. BMW Team Redline won the race. Meanwhile, Thompson for Team Redline only finished 13 seconds behind in that Ford. But hey, if you're on Team Redline, I think that's expectation. It doesn't matter what car you're running. The expectation is that you're finishing in the podium spot, and they had multiple drivers do that.
Yeah, so just gives you an idea. It's got to be the right conditions for the Ford and so on, really. I think somewhere where maybe it doesn't excel so much is in the rain. That was the fear for a lot of Ford teams, actually, before the Spa 24 Hours. In the end, there was 4 hours of rain that they actually coped with very well. And as you say, only finished 13 seconds off the win in the end, so maybe it's not quite as bad as everyone thinks. Out through the final sector of the lap again then for the only Ford in the field. It's David Riley trying to pass Gene Moore in that Audi for 11th position. They've both been passed, I believe, by the championship contenders back here. Well, they're both in arrears to Mike Grandy, but David Riley is, of course, one of those championship contenders looking to get involved. And there goes Mike Grandy in the pit lane. This is a big call. Pit stop's expected, but this is an early one for the championship leader.
Yeah, this is extremely early. I don't necessarily hate it, right? It's going to be for fuel. It's going to try and get him out of that traffic. Maybe it helps getting that clean air immediately. It's certainly going to be interesting, but once he catches some of the slower traffic in this race, all of a sudden that's going to mean that he's going to have to make moves happen again. I don't know if I love that call to do it so early, but hey, it's certainly off the books, or I should say off the main books that we're seeing, and I'm curious. I like it.
I think it's a good idea. Mike Grandy was stuck in a lot of traffic beforehand, and that was never really going to be resolved, to be honest, because he just keep making overtake after overtake, then catching up to someone else. So what's the point? Right. Go into the pit lane, get yourself the fuel required to get to the end, and you will be heavier for the majority of the race compared to the other drivers.
But clean air.
Yes, exactly. But clean air is exactly what he's looking for, and that's exactly what he's got. 15, 16 seconds up to Eugene Clark. He shouldn't catch Clark before the pit stops, although if Clark runs it out for another 20 minutes, Grandy could suddenly find himself in the difficulty. That is the worry, but it's a risk worth taking, because if he stays 7th, he could not find any overtakes here, and he might not be able to move any further up the field than 7th place. So I think it's worth the risk, and Grandy certainly knows what he's doing in terms of winning a series in 60 Plus Racing Adventures competition.
Look at this.
That is for sure. This is an interesting battle. De Pasqua has been caught now for 3rd place. De Philippis, after getting past Rosati, is now looking for a podium place. To the outside, De Pasqua has been going too late on the brakes into turn 1 multiple times so far. It was a little bit deep, but De Philippis wasn't quite positioned well enough to overtake him anyway, and so he stays in 4th place. Rosati will close on the both of them as a result.
Yeah, it looked like he just got a little bit, De Philippis got a too wide on that entry into the chicane, and it ended up costing him. Rosati is appreciative of these two battling. Also, I think we've got the answer to the question of are these drivers going to make their bed fighting for a podium spot, or are they going to work together to get into P1? That gap has extended. It's ballooned to over 6 seconds now, and unless the two drivers up front make some incredible errors, this is a battle for the podium, not for the win.
Yep, they have very much resigned themselves to a battle for the podium. I mean, that's okay, but they may have believed that they weren't going to catch them anyway, so thought that it's worth the battle. But you know, that maybe one or two of them will be frustrated they didn't quite get positioned quite right for a chance to win. Here goes David Riley looking at the inside. Now 10th, by the way, because Ricardo Ilito also came in on that last lap, the lap after Grandy. So that's 1st and 3rd in the championship, both going for this alternate strategy, which almost negates it between the lot of them if they all do this. And I wouldn't be surprised to see David Riley doing something similar soon as well, because he is stuck.
Yeah, and I don't hate that, right? You want to kind of answer back to what the championship leader has done. And we saw that there was a bit of traffic that Alito was around the entire time, as De Pasqua is going to have to try and defend again on De Philippis. I don't know, is this closer this time?
Well, he's on the inside, the difference, and they're pretty much level on the way into the corner. Yeah. This time, De Philippis makes it clear, though. He uses the road on the left-hand side, uses all of it just to slam the door on De Pasqua, and that means it's 3rd place for Roberto De Philippis in that number 1 Ferrari. Eventually, he makes his way through. To be honest, having seen the battle the lap previous, I'm not entirely sure how De Pasqua allowed him the inside anyway.
Yeah, I also agree with that. It was some awesome attacking, and the defense kind of was lacking from De Pasqua there. I thought he would have done a little bit more to pinch De Philippis to the inside there around that corner. You know, I'm so used to watching oval racing, right? NASCAR, high-banked ovals. That turn 1 is a little bit banked, so you're going to see similar defensive maneuvers by drivers who understand how to work around a banked corner. right there, should have pinched. Would have been a lot better on that defense instead of giving all that space, all that room. We have seen these drivers give each other room in this battle for the podium, so that is surprising to me. But hey, live to fight another day. But right now, De Philippis is just smoking the competition and running away with the podium.
Yeah, he is. That didn't look quite clear at one stage. Thought he was stuck with these guys a little bit on a similar pace, but no, he is showing himself to be that little bit quicker now. We approach.
Shows how hard it is to pass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it shows just how much you're being held back as well when you're behind someone. Will Brissetti follow through, or will they find a happy medium here between the two of them? De Pasqua just up ahead in the red Ferrari. He's not going to be challenged this time, I don't think, on the way in towards turn number 1, although he is having to look in his mirrors. Keep one eye there. Oh, that's a big dive from Rossetti. He gets it stopped in time, but maybe spooked a little bit. De Pasqua gives a lot of room and loses 4th as well. So that's 2 places in 2 laps. Rossetti with a late move, but it has worked, and he's up to 4th.
That's one of those moves where if it doesn't work out, it is all on Russ Addy for making the lunge that late. But when it does, in that situation, in that example, it absolutely did work out, then hats off, because he, the defense, he kind of put him in a position where, well, if you're not going to give me a little bit of room, then we're both going to have a little bit of contact. But hats off to Addy, because he did slow the car down in time to stay planted to the apex, stay planted to the inside as far as possible. But he does go a little bit wide there through turn 8 and 9. So a little bit of an attack coming. Look at that. De Pasqua looking all over you.
Serves me right for saying he's not going to make the move into turn 1, and then and he did.
It goes into the broadcast calls of, and he's getting the worst of it, while Elliott Sadler just absolutely nails the inside at Pocono from years ago, which is timely and notable for his recent conversation.
Do you mean the one from 2002 or something, or was that someone else?
2010. Elliott Sadler's had some pretty interesting hits across his lifetime.
Right, okay. My knowledge not quite up to scratch. At the final corner for the leaders, these guys are in the top 5, of course, all of them, and De Pasqua comes in. Not a bad idea. Yeah. He's not stuck in traffic exactly, but he has had the last few minutes go away from him. So maybe a bit more fuel, a bit of a reset here is a good thing. The problem being, he's probably going to be quite close to Eugene Clark, and that big battle from about David Riley backwards. We've seen the Ford of Gene Moore come in. That's released David Riley finally, but Peter Hallström is right near that, so that just shows you how close that part of the field was. Now, where will De Pasqua come out here? Will it be near Mike Grandy maybe, or will he be in the traffic? There goes Clark. You just saw him flash through your screen there. He will have a bit of space here, actually, De Pasqua, and so that might have worked out a bit better for him than I anticipated. But what has worked out well here is Mike Grandy's pit stop strategy. 3 seconds, less than 3 seconds the gap. Look at him coming into turn 1 right now. He is surely in 6th place when this pit stop cycle checks itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. Grandy is not racing for the win when this one is all said and done, so he is looking at trying to get in the 6th and maybe even into the top 5 conversation. And I was watching his timing. He was 43 seconds behind Seitz, the leader, when he went into the pits around 9 minutes ago. Right now, he's 48 seconds back, so he has lost 4.5 or so seconds to the leader, but in that same amount of time, you've seen that podium battle, other drivers lose even far more time. So it's a net gain, I think, for Grandy after this pit cycle will be all said and done.
Yeah, it is. It's not maybe as big of a gain as he was hoping for, but, quite greedy. He is taking positions, and he's, more importantly, I think, taking better track position actually, and getting out from behind some of the drivers he would have been otherwise. Look at the speed of David Riley here, by the way. As soon as he's been released from Gene Moore, he's now straight on the back of Franz-Josef Sturm already, and that is a relief for him in terms of he's got the speed, not a relief in terms of I can't overtake, and that seems to be the problem for Riley at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's really the grand case of it, right? These drivers are struggling with making moves happen. I don't know if I've seen a single move not in the first sector over the course of this race right now, and Riley making a look down the inside way too far back to make a move happen. But last time we said that,
Yeah.
He really lunged in there on the inside and ended up costing him some speed through corner number 1.
It's giving it a go through turns 2 and 3 they go. Avoiding the anti-cuts here, which are present on the inside. They run out wide, but only up to the gravel. Now on the way towards 4 and 5. It's almost like doing the same 2 corners again.
Yeah.
There is the anti-cuts on the left, there's them on the right. Don't clip them too hard, or if at all. And you can use a bit more of the green on the left there than Riley did on that occasion. Now you're into the very high speed stuff. This is where an F3 or F4 car would really enjoy itself with the high downforce. But as I mentioned before, fixed high downforce setups in these machines, they should be handling well around here, even halfway around this race, which we are coming up to the point of right now. Up the hill they go over the end of the high speed section. We slow it down again for turn 10, although it still remains pretty medium speed. So we've been on board with David Riley. Seems like we've been weighing him down because he has lost a bit of time to Stum, who is just a second or so up the road now.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Riley is losing some amount of time, but look at that, way wide through that corner right there, turn 12. That opens the door for Riley to come back into this fight. It's all about how you go through turn 15, though, and it's almost like a double corner where you have this sharp entrance in the left-hander. You straighten out the car just a little bit, right around there, and then again, it's a sharp exit on the left. You're still, you know, dealing with a lot of speed, and you still have a wide exit, but it does get sharper on the inside. In the slipstream right now, we're halfway through this race, and now Craig Vaught has gone down pit lane. When is the last lap you're expecting to see any of these drivers come in? 10 minutes to go, something like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think Grandy came in pretty much at the earliest he could have. That was after 10 minutes, which suggests to me that with 10 minutes to go, that will be pretty much the limit of where they're going. Now, if suddenly we find with 12 minutes to go everybody's come in, and then I'm getting concerned for Grandy, to be honest, because he might not have enough fuel, but I'm sure he has made that calculation and he'll be absolutely fine. And
well,
even so, we're a good 10 minutes away from that right now.
It's not even that for my concern with Grandy on the fuel-based calculations. It's more now he's back in the traffic. Now he's behind Pasqua by half a second. Now he's got to make moves again to make this strategy actually viable for anything more than you know, what it is, which to us it looks like a net gain of at least 1 position, maybe 2, but also I think he's hoping for a lot more from that, and unless he's able to get by Pasqua, that racecraft has to show, then there's nothing more that he's going to gain.
I think he'll be happy with where he is at the moment. I think that the problem for him, though, is Eugene Clark again. Mentioned that before, but the cars that haven't stopped yet getting in the way is a problem for them. There goes one of the BMWs wide. Franz Josef Stum through the right-hander at turn 12, just goes into the gravel, loses places. David Roddy goes through, Bob Kern, Tom Dussums as well, goes straight through, invitation to take the place, and Franz Josef Stum, I'm afraid, loses 3 places in one go.
Ross Addy in pit lane right now, and as Russ is in the pits, we actually saw that move from Stum just last lap, same exact corner. He went well wide. He didn't go off track completely, but it was almost a precursor to what we saw this lap on by. By the way, these fuel times, how long everybody has been fueling up. Right now, the longest amount of time in the pits of any of the competitors other than Jerry Kerr currently last place on track, as Gene Moore's timing is a little bit wonky right now, was 12.5 seconds, and that was Alida, as going well wide was Eugene Clark. Man, this is a hornet's nest right now.
It is. So Russ Addy has gotten ahead, and Clark's just getting out the way of them, so that's a relief for these 3, and they should be fine now. They probably won't catch Tom Dessels before the top 7, which we're still waiting for to come into pit lane, actually pit. So these 3 are doing well now. They might just hold off on fighting with one another for the moment, because they know that, especially they've got De Philippis up ahead, who hasn't stopped. He's probably the only driver who hasn't stopped yet who will be near them, and when he does, they'll start fighting again. But until then, they'll be giving De Philippis 3rd place on a plate if they begin to have a battle.
I want to see how Hallstrom's going to make it to the end of this race, because that's a big variation in fuel time in the pits, as we see almost side by side here, coming down to the brake markers. Very wide, though. Very wide. It's so hard to make a move work like that when it's practically a 180-degree corner and you go that wide.
And taking advantage of that might be Mike Grandy on the way towards turn 15. Didn't have a great run through the fast chicane, though. It's pretty much flat out through there. And if you get the line wrong, then you will be down on speed. DePasco goes a bit wide again into the final turn. Banked again, though. You can use the slope a little bit. You're on the hills of Tuscany, of course, and so just slope uphill and downhill a little bit. You can use that on the way towards the front straight, which is very, very long, of course, and provides you with that best overtaking opportunity on the lap. Down in towards turn number 1. Will Mike Grandy give it a go? Absolutely not is the answer. He stays behind. I think, again, that is the smart thing to do at this stage in the race, but when this race eventually sorts itself out, there won't be very many minutes to go.
Yeah, not at all. It's there's not going to be too much time once some of these drivers also go into the pits. Some of the leaders, which, by the way, I'm surprised that we still haven't seen the top 3 go down pit lane yet in this one. That's interesting. They're all going with a bit of an overcut. I guess because you're not going to see that much extra speed from going out of the pits. You're not changing tires. Maybe it's just about really clean air was the biggest thing for a driver like Brandy, for example.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons for the guys out front staying out as long as they are. One is that they're in clean air now. If they were to pit, yes, they are covering off their rivals, and there is an argument to be made for that, but equally, the way they are right now, they are in clean air. And second of all, they've got less fuel on board than these guys back here, because they're going to the end of the race. We watch the guys we're watching at the moment. The guys at the front are not going to the end of the race on the current fuel load, so it is naturally lower, and that means they should be quicker on this overcut. So we'll see whether that actually plays out in practice, but that's the theory. As Todd Scholl now comes into the pit lane, this is very much marking the end of the pit stop cycle here. Not many to go now.
Yeah, not too many laps, not too many drivers left that still need to come into the pit. Scholl's just getting way out of the way. I don't hate that move for him. Hopefully it's a net gain for what he wanted. Not quite sure where he came into the pits, but nonetheless, you know, getting clean air, it's been the name of the game here with these high downforce cars. You know, high downforce is great, but when you have high downforce, the cars in behind have a worse vortex of air to deal with, and at a track like this, it certainly comes into play. It becomes a factor. You know, we're talking about high downforce cars. Imagine a Formula One car here in this race. Obviously, we saw F1 here during a few years during the bad times of 2020 and during COVID and everything like that, and it was enjoyable. But right here, going through 6 and 7, I cannot imagine what it would look like if you could take the air coming off those front wings and all the crevices of an F1 car and just see what the air actually looked like.
Yeah, it's a bit small, isn't it, for F1 really, this circuit? It's a little bit on the short side and the small side as the race leader comes into the pit lane. Greg Sykes now maybe kicking off the final part of this pit cycle. Will the others follow? Will they reach their fuel limit with 28 minutes gone? Give me a bit of concern.
Look at the pits.
But Mike Grandy, yeah, they're all in here. So the top 3 all in pit lane at once at the moment. There is De Philippis on board with him. You can see the front 2 ahead of him having that battle down in pit lane. Greenwood needs to have a shorter stop here if he can somehow manage it. 8.9 was the gap for Seitz. It's longer for Greenwood by nearly 2 seconds. That's going to give Seitz an even clearer route to the race win here as Roberto De Philippis goes out with roughly a time in between the two of them. He will stay 3rd, will he? As Rosati makes his way down the front straight now. There goes David Riley up into 3rd place, but he hasn't stopped yet. Bob Kern is next. He gets ahead of De Philippis just about. Tom Desselms is there as well. How has De Philippis gained so much time? That's very impressive indeed. He is comfortably 3rd.
And this is surprising for Mike Grandy, who we were thinking 6th maybe, as the Corvettes goes off track right there. He's in 9th right now, so I think still a net gain, but is it something he's going to be happy with? I don't know. Are race car drivers ever happy?
Well,
other than a 1st place finish.
There is that. I mean, we have still got 3 other drivers to come in, don't forget his, so I think it will still be 6th. But the fact he's so far behind De Philippis, I think, is going to annoy all of the trio that were running together for a while. But maybe it says something for the going long in that first stint, using that low fuel and using the clean air as well. That's exactly how De Philippis has gotten onto what might be a podium at the end of this race.
This is annoying him more than anything because he's got some speed right here, and Bob Kern and David Riley are certainly holding him up. You could see how aggressive he is, trying to make some moves, sway down to the outside, to the inside, to just get by Kern in that 6 machine. It's not happening for him right here, though.
It isn't, and this could throw away the chance of a third place, or at least make him fight for it further. Look at him diving to the inside here. Kern won't be enthused by this particularly. He won't want to be going side by side with someone when he wants to go pit lane, because if he gets stuck on the left here on the way out of the final corner, he won't be able to get onto the lane. And there he goes, just making, I think he gave up the place a little bit easier than he otherwise might, just to make absolutely sure it would be okay. Tom Dessons comes in as well, to the very big relief of the 3 chasing him too, so they'll be out of the running now. It's going to be between Adi De Pasqua and Grandi to fight for what will be 4th place when David Riley eventually comes into pit lane.
Yeah, just David Riley, and honestly, extremely impressed. He's gone 17 laps on this fuel tank right here, under 10 minutes to go. We were kind of close where we said everybody, we would see the last pit stops happening. Laps 12 minutes to go is when we saw the leaders come in, and now 9, probably 8 minutes by the time we see Riley head into the pits, currently in P3. De Pasqua trying to fight right now. Provisionally, he's in P5. He's got a chance of getting into 4th, I'll say that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it will...
He's right there.
Yeah, we'll take a look at where everybody is, you know, in real terms when this final pit stop is made, and maybe have a little look at how that might affect the point standings as well. But this has been a good day for Mike Grandi, considering where he qualified, and I think considering as well his speed compared to what he might have been hoping for and what he might have been expecting from this circuit. After all, his manufacturer, the Corvette, is leading this race comfortably. It's not the Corvette's fault. He can't look at his tools today. It can only be looking at himself. Maybe he just doesn't enjoy this circuit, and that's fair enough. We've all got circuits we don't particularly get on well with, but it's about minimising the damage when you're on them, and Mike Grandi has done a very good job at that so far.
So, a thing to think about is last time out, all these drivers raced at the Nürburgring GP circuit, and Sykes actually won that race, got 48 points from it. Mike Grandi only got 37 points. He finished back in P9, so that is not the results that you want to see, you know, for Grandi in his case, his favor. I don't know if our standings quite show the Nürburgring points added in. If that is not the case, then that gap is slowly starting to come down for a P1 battle.
Well, things are to end right now. It certainly would be less than 30 points between Grandi and Sykes. Sure. So that is a notable milestone in this season, and if Sykes can keep this up, maybe he can turn this around by the end of the season. David Riley has taken a bit of a hit today. Unfortunately, 9 points was the gap we showed you at the start of the day. He's down in 9th place now, so he will lose a few of those points, but he's gained some of those places. He is comfortable now with 3.5 seconds behind him and a good 13 seconds ahead of him. I don't think he's going to change his position again here, David Riley, but it's the traffic that's killed him today.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's all about that dirty air and not being able to get the moves done at this circuit. You only have so many chances to make a move happen, and considering that this race is probably around 22 laps in length, give that 22 clear-cut opportunities to make a move.
Yeah, pretty much, if you want to boil it down to that. By the way, it will be exactly 22 laps, and the final 4 of them are about to start. Greg Sykes is just making his way over the line to start the 4th last lap and start the countdown towards the end of this race. Round 8 of the 60 Plus Racing Adventures GT3 Series in the 3rd season of 2024. And Mike Grandi's got around. We were complimenting him on a great day as championship leader. Well, he's going to be thankful he had such a margin back to 7th, because it's an unforced error in the final turn that has sent Mike Grandi around and has resigned him to 6th place for the day.
Oh man, that's absolutely brutal for Grandi. loses a few seconds there to De Pasqua. I mean, he was almost looking at a chance to get just outside the podium. He cannot have any more of those mistakes. If we look at the points, I mean, Grandy had 6 races. Get a replay. That is an unforced error right there. All on his own, gets it back going and stays out of the grass. That's unfortunate. Grandy made 6 races. This is his 7th race of the year, or I should say 8th race of the year. He's made 7 previously. Seitz missed one of the rounds, the first round, and he's chasing. He's been the guy to beat on speed ever since he joined back up with the series, and mistakes like that for Grandy does not bode well for his championship hopes.
Well, it's a disappointment for sure, but it hasn't had any material.
No. The potential, though.
Yeah, that's certainly potential, but it hasn't had any material made any difference to his, I don't know what word I'm looking for there, but anyway, it hasn't actually made any difference to the race realistically. He's just going to finish 6th now. He's very fortunate that there's a good 7 seconds behind him to Ricardo Olita, and that's another driver he's taking points on today, by the way. We talked about David Riley, but Ricardo Olita is going to fall to over 20 points back now. With Greg, we talk about Greg Seitz bringing that gap below 20 at the start of the day. Olita is going to see his gap rise to above 20, maybe, or might get to around that mark at the end of the day. Bill Smith is unfortunately not here, so that's one of the top 5 and one of the big championship contenders, I feel, not here, unfortunately. He will need a big bounce back at Mid-Ohio in 1 week's time if he wants to make a late charge. Speaking of a late charge, here goes Remigio de Pasqua as we going towards turn 1. He can't do it, and this is going to be the fight to the end here. 4 minutes to go, 3 laps is what they've just started for now, and this is the fight. They're not going to get third, they're not going to drop back into the clutches of Mike Grandy either. It's between the two of them for 4th place.
Yeah, this and the battle for a spot in the top 10 are the closest racing battles on track. Nice to see it between them as we go back to Peter Hallstrom, who, remember Hallstrom he was one of the first drivers to come into pit lane as well, so quite impressive to see him. But he also has a much, he had less fuel put in than anybody else around him. So as he goes, or Addy goes quite wide, we'll have to see what happens with Hallstrom here. This is going to be an opportunity for Pasqua.
Oh dear, big
That's a block
from Addy. It certainly was a block on the way towards the right-hander of turn 10, and is that going to affect his exit through here for 11? He's recovered it quite well, but that was aggressive. You can tell that we're getting towards the end of the race now. We're just turning up the heat a little bit here in the final couple of laps, and there isn't long to go. Russ Addy can throw caution to the wind here in his defensive 4th place.
Yeah, he just hopes he isn't the reason that the caution is on track. I mean, Addy was definitely putting himself in a position to potentially get some contact from De Pasqua there. There's one move to the inside going to the next corner, and then the second move, you could argue, was definitely because he was going into a racing line throughout the corner. But definitely on the limit, definitely on the edge, as we've got just 2 laps here remaining for these drivers to sort themselves out.
Yep, 2 laps remaining here at Mugello, round 8 of the 60 Plus Racing Adventures GT3 series here from the Tuscan Hills. It is Russ Addy just ahead of us, Remigio de Pasqua in the 5th position, just in behind on home soil today. He's not going to be the highest finisher of those at home today. Roberto de Pilifith is going to be in that 3rd position. He's going to be on the podium representing the home nation, just in behind Greg Seitz and Steve Greenwood, who we haven't seen very much of today, but they've been the class of the field. Seitz, to boil it down even further, has been the class of the field. It looks like without any further issues in this final lap and a half, he is going to be the race winner again and continue to make steps towards the championship. Still clinging on, Mike Grandy, 6th place. As things stand, he will leave today as the championship leader if it stays as it is.
Yeah, it definitely looks that way, but we'll have to see once all the standings do get updated on their series standings board. But Seitz has been so fast, and we've barely seen him on the broadcast today, and it's just the plight of being the fastest driver and not having too much competition. Shout out to Steve Greenwood, who really has turned up the wick on sites throughout this race, just did not have a good pit stop, which led to the gap widening out to 5.5 seconds. I mean, it was within 3 seconds for most of the race, probably 2 seconds for most of the race. It's just, you know, sometimes pit stops lead to that. You saw that wiggle coming around the final corner there. White flag in the air for these drivers.
Yep, one more time round for the 19 drivers who are all still in this race. No retirements today, nobody falling off the lead lap either, despite the pace of this man. Greg Seitz in the orange and red Corvette has been the class of the field. Nearly 6 seconds is his margin as he bears down on Mike Grandy's championship lead, bringing the points gap down to less than 20 points with 4 rounds to go. The rain of Mid-Ohio will be everyone's biggest task between now and the finish. Next week, that's coming up, followed by Road America, Hockenheim and Algarve. What an end to the season it's going to be, and this is the man in form on your screen right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what the run to the championship will look like, but Seitz with just a few more corners to go, he's definitely put in an epic performance here. Quite boring by any race's standards on his behalf, but he likes boring if it ends up with him having the checkered flag in his hand, rounding part of the final sector now. Just one chicane and one 180 to go.
I tell you, if you're leading the entire way and you're on your own, that's not a boring race. That's just a well-executed race, and I'm sure he will have very much enjoyed himself here in Mugello today. Round the final corner he goes. Greg Seitz makes his way up towards the line and takes another step towards the championship. Greg Seitz wins in Mugello and brings the margin down to less than 20 points after a dominant display in the Tuscan Hills. It's Steve Greenwood who finishes in second. Who's going to hang on to fourth? That's the main task for the remainder. Russ Addy in the end. I think that block thrown with 3 laps to go towards turn 10 was really as close as DePasquale got. In the end, he wasn't able to make that overtake. He finishes 5th. A couple of the other battles make their way towards the line as well. There's been plenty going on throughout the midfield, even despite a fairly spread out race towards the front. I mean, these guys over a minute off the win.
Yeah, and listen, they're all still fighting for points. Everyone's getting points just as long as you finish the race and you're classified, you get those points. Look at that Corvette going a little bit wide right there through the chicane. That might hurt the opportunity to get by this Ferrari, but look at that, what a lunge, and they make contact.
Oh no,
and
well,
I think that was, yeah. that was
going to happen.
Yeah,
that was going to happen, unfortunately, for Tom DeSelms. He is going to hold on, I think, to 13th, and that might be why he went for it anyway. Thought, well, not going to lose this place, might as well give it a go. Better get going. JC Hay is on his way, but he won't get there in time. Popcorn, Eugene Clark with them in that group over the line. And then just a few more after them to finish up. Few more, 3 more in fact, to finish up. The only of the BMWs in the field, Franz Josef Sturm, and the only of the Fords as well. This is the end race results though, with Greg Seitz winning. 6.6 seconds is the official margin at the end ahead of Steve Greenwood. Roberto De Philippis rounds out the podium places. Rossetti held off Remigio De Pasqua for 4th place there, with championship leader Mike Grandy taking a hit in points, but finishing a pretty good 6th place considering where he qualified. Riccardo Milita is one of those championship contenders who lost points to his main rival. Todd Shaw was 8th ahead of David Riley, another driver losing points as he started 2nd, only 9 points adrift. Peter Halsam finished in the top 10 with Steve O'Malley just outside of it. Craig Butt 12th ahead of Tom DeSelms, who made that move at the end, or tried to. JC Hay, Bob Kern and Eugene Clark made their way over the line just afterwards. Franz Josef Sturm in the only BMW finished 17th. The only Ford of Gene Moore finished 18th, and Jerry Kerr finished 19th in the Corvette. One of the few, of course. Well, 22 laps of pretty interesting racing here at Mugello. It wasn't quite the follow the leader stuff that we were fearing at times, but there were plenty of times of single file. It was all, though, in trail of the man on your screen there. Greg Seitz, the winner in the end by quite some distance, and he's going to be bag full of confidence into a race that you really need it in the rain at Mid-Ohio.
Absolutely. Mid-Ohio in the rain is as treacherous as you can possibly get. And he's going to have this momentum that he really has had since he joined the series, second time up. We take a look at the rest of the schedule. Just 4 races to go. You were talking about that American swing coming up with Mid-Ohio and Road America. But my goodness, the last 2 races, Hockenheimring and Algarve, it's going to be so much fun to see. But we do have some drivers who have joined in and want to get in on the fun and the action. I don't know if you could consider Jerry, though, who is currently in the driver's room, to be one of the drivers who had fun. But certainly, Greg Seitz has joined us now, and I believe you're standing by with him.
Yeah, we'll get to Jerry in a few moments' time, but we'll go for Greg Seitz first. Oh, Jerry's gone, but Greg's here. Welcome in, Greg. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on the win as well. 6.6 seconds is the margin at the end. You looked very comfortable around this circuit, which can make people feel quite uncomfortable sometimes. Was that the case? How are you feeling?
It wasn't too bad. I was a little tensed up, so I kind of at the beginning, it took me a little while to kind of find my rhythm, but I was always looking for, just that point where I kind of could relax a little bit. But Steve kept me honest most of the race, and so I was kind of looking behind me a little too much, but in the end, it turned out okay.
It didn't look like you were looking behind you very much, I've got to say. You continued to extend the margin, and that, of course, will give you a bit of momentum now as you try and close the margin on Mike Grandy. And momentum might be pretty important. How are you feeling about going into the rain at Mid-Ohio next week, if indeed we are going to see you there? How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I plan to race there. I have no idea with the rain. I've never raced this car. This is really the first season I've done this car, so that's going to be interesting. I guess actually we did do rain at Daytona, and I got second there, so that's not a great sign.
Well, maybe it bodes well for a good result next week. We'll wait and see. How are you feeling about the rest of the championship as a whole? I mean, there's not a big gap between, well, I would have said a front 5 actually at the start of this race. It might be down to 4 now, but either way, it's a close championship. How are you feeling about it?
It's definitely, I'm having to really kind of push, but I have missed a race, so without that, I don't know if there's any drop races in this particular league, but without that, I think I'd have a comfortable margin. But I'm having to make it up by just being on the podium every race.
Yeah, I can't see in the rules that there is a drop week, so yeah, I think you have to do the hard yards, the old-fashioned way, as it were, without a drop week. Well, congratulations on doing some more of those hard yards here tonight. Congratulations on that win, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Greg Seitz, the winner of tonight's race at Mugello in the 6 Plus Racing Adventures GT3 series. That was round 8, Dylan. It was a good round. 40 minutes of racing, plenty of interest within it, championship implications as well, and Greg Seitz on a roll. Can he continue knocking those points down, and can he win the title even despite missing a round? It would be very impressive.
It would be absolutely impressive. I equate this race that we just watched to trying to explain to somebody why a 1-0 football match is a fun, it could still be a fun game to watch. You still have some intense defense. You still have some attacking opportunities. At the end of the day, though, the actual finishing score was 1-0. This race did not have too many passing opportunities or even passes made, but I still think it was exciting, and sometimes it's just about being there and the attempts and the looks and the blocks that make it into an exhilarating watch.
It's all well and good being 1-0 as long as you win, but I know it's not normally a problem for you, and I know what team you support. Anyway,
all right, listen.
Let's not descend into football before this broadcast ends. Thanks very much for coming to join us. Thanks very much for watching, everybody here tonight. This has been the 6 Plus Racing Adventures GT3 series for its 8th round at Mugello. Just 4 to go with the rain at Mid-Ohio coming up next week. I hope that indeed you can get involved and get racing yourself there in this great series. I've been Ian Leary alongside Dylan Coyle, and Hugo Lewis has been behind the cameras once again. A big thanks to everyone who has tuned in. We'll see you again for more 60 Plus Racing Adventures action very soon. Goodbye for now.